7:45, almost 7:46 in the morning, and it is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, WCCSradio.com. Bob Pollock is with us this morning. Our conversation brought to you by Marcus & Mack, voted best personal injury law firm in the Best of Indiana County contest. Marcus & Mack, a law firm representing injured people. Mr. Pollock, good morning.
Good morning.
I think that at this time of the year, almost every conversation begins in one of two ways. Either, gosh, it's dry, or what do you hear about blight? So let's start with that second question first. What do you hear about blight? Because people always want to know.
You want the second one first?
Yeah.
Well, okay. So late blight is the one we're specifically mentioning that we try to track. And so that was found, so a week ago, that was found out in Ohio, and then just over the Pennsylvania border into New York, in a county there.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had some storms since then, but there are no new reportings of that spreading yet.
Still a good idea, though, to spray right now, isn't it?
Yes, so we've had, we were dry, right? But we still get some dew and moisture overnight.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still possible, even though we have a lot less, chance of disease issues, there's a chance. And really anything we're doing is preventative. We're trying to prevent these diseases from coming in, taking over. So we need to be proactive about that. Even on a dry year, because, dew overnight is enough of a wetting period that it can cause, whether it be early blight, which usually starts on the bottom leaves of tomato plants, works its way up. Septorial leaf spot is another one that'll make dark blackish spots all over the leaves, and then those will also get on the fruit.
Yeah.
And then, of course, late blight, which tends to get brought in on storm fronts, and then can quickly take a planting down in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Spray anyway.
Yeah, and then we had rain. I had 0.4 of an inch the other day, so that was helpful,
Yeah.
A little more would have been great, but it still was a good rain, and you can see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
It's made. Now we just gotta, maybe once we turn the water spigot on a little bit, we can get those clouds to make a little more and keep us going here.
So that was one thing, and the second thing was the rain. We were talking about the dryness of the area.
So
that little bit of rain that we got the other day was very, very helpful. The garden is where you notice it most.
Yes.
Everything just seems to have awakened again. But we are down. We had the numbers earlier this week. The month of June, we were down over 2 inches. But we were still up for the year.
Right.
But as you have always said, it's the timing of the rain that is
Yes.
almost as important as the amount of the rain.
And then we had Josh and I talked last week about, the combination of the lack of moisture plus the temperatures. The consistently high temperatures that we had really stress plants, stress people too. So we need to keep observing our plants, keep watching them. We can also run into more insect issues on a dry year. Usually if you're growing vegetables, if it's drier years, usually things perform better overall. Most people can water to a degree that can help get through those dry spots, although we seem to be in a drier spell. We used to get enough range. We might be dry for a couple of weeks, and then we'd get a rain and get back out of that. And this time it's been a little more extended.
Today, July 19th, this is the anniversary of the Johnstown flood from 1977. By the way, the Blue Mass is happening today at the Seward Holy Family Parish. We'll tell you about that after our next segment. But when you think about the way things used to be and the patterns that were followed by the weather, And there are so many different influences on our weather patterns, but it seems like each summer now we have an extended period of weeks or even a month or more where we are really, really hot and really, really dry.
Yes. So be vigilant. Keep looking at plants, especially if you've planted any trees and shrubbery this spring when we had ample moisture. Now we don't. Mm-hmm. So until those plants get established, and it takes a while, a lot of times, for trees and shrubs to get established, to get that root system out into the existing soil that's there. You dug a hole, you planted it, but it can take a while for those roots to grow into and expand enough that root ball, whatever the size that was when you planted that plant, whether it was potted or a ball and burlapped plant that was dug out of the soil, those root balls can dry out, and it might not die in a week or a month, but 3 or 4 months down the road, wow, this thing doesn't look quite right.
Yeah.
What's going on? Well, if that root ball dried up, even though there might have been a little moisture around, it wasn't enough, or we had enough of a dry period that it did dry out before we were able to either water it or get rainfall enough to soak that root ball. So you really got to watch those plants, especially in that first 1 to 2 years till they get really established and send out new roots.
I was in Kentucky last week and noting some of the plants that grow very naturally down there. I went through a particular garden area where we were able to see the different plants that are available there that are just thriving. And they're not plants typically that we get here, ornamentals and things of that nature. You don't see those around here. And it got me to thinking about the zones. And what zone are we in here?
We're in 6 now.
We're in 6.
For the most part.
But you say, the way you say that, we're in 6 now. We didn't used to be all dominated by zone 6.
We were a strong 5, used to be.
Yeah, so that being the case, and as you go further south, the number goes up to the zone. Are plants that grow in Kentucky, in Virginia, in the Carolinas that aren't thought of as plants for Pennsylvania, are they now plants that can be planted up here in Pennsylvania, and do they become invasive then?
Yeah, well, all of the above.
That last part occurred to me just as I said it.
Yeah, and that's possible too. Some plants have a broad range. They might be able to take cold down to zone 2, 30, 40 below zero, and then all the way up to maybe zone 7 or 8, or even 9. Mm-hmm. And then other plants have a much narrower hardiness zone. So yes, we're creeping up now. Well, and they changed the maps too. The hardiness zone map, and that's how we creeped up from a 5 to a 6.
Yeah.
Because we're not getting, for the most part, as cold in the winter. But all it takes is that one winter, 2 winters ago, in December, Christmas week, when we had a crash and burn, right? It got down to 0 and below.
Yeah, well, it was a crash and freeze, but
yeah, yeah, we didn't burn too much, but that can still happen.
So a plant that you might have established from further south that we now grow here would have been wiped out by extra cold weather like that.
Yes, unless it was in a protected spot, where it was just a little warmer, that little local environment that protected that. But exposed out in the open, that would have been enough to kill it.
So zone 6, zone 7 plants that we might want to consider bringing up here into Pennsylvania, maybe we do some research on them and find out which ones of those that grow in zone 7 will actually be able to survive zone 5 or 6 or even 4 type of temperatures.
Yep. Yeah, there's overlap there, and some plants start it. They might only be hardy down to 0 or -10, and then you've got another group that might make it down to 10 degrees, and above. So we just have to look at that individual plant, say, wow, that's a nice plant. I'd like to have that in my yard, whether it be a deciduous or an evergreen, and then find out what it is and make sure that it will survive here or has a,
it grow
a
in
reasonable
Buffalo?
chance.
If it grows in Buffalo or Minnesota, then we ought to be safe with it here.
We won't be picking too many of those plants that we see farther south when you put that criteria on there.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking particularly of there were some Japanese ornamentals that I thought were really, really nice in this particular garden area. And they were small tree, more tree type of plantings, and I thought they looked really, really nice. And then there were some bamboo as well.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking bamboo's not going to grow here.
Oh yeah, bamboo will grow here.
It will?
Yes.
Okay.
Not all species and cultivars of it, but there are some stands here and there of bamboo around.
Well, I'm thinking
locally.
of starting a colony of panda bears. So
You've got to be very careful. There are ones that are not invasive, and there are others that will take over.
Panda bears or bamboo?
Well, the bamboo.
Okay.
Not not so much the panda bears.
Okay.
They like hanging out there, but
We need to clarify sometimes. He's Bob Pollock from the Extension. All right, there you go. Anything else?
just speaking about that bamboo, a lot of times bamboo, you've got to set that up. You actually have to have you got to dig a hole, a ditch, and line that ditch so that those roots cannot, let's say you wanted a hedgerow along your property border of bamboo, just because it's thick and tall and makes a great barrier.
This was 12 foot high and thick as could be.
But look, you have to look at the ground and see, how they constructed that so that it can stay where it needs to be, because otherwise it can be a very prolific spreader, get out of hand in a hurry, and it's very challenging to keep it in check and not let it spread where you don't want it. And then there are some cultivars specifically that are much less aggressive. Still will do the job, but much less aggressive and easier to handle.
So if I put in some rapidly expanding bamboo, then I could get unwanted panda bears.
Yeah, you might have to chop your way into your house after a while.
I'll just ask the panda bears to clear the path. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Does this segment go off track? So
Yeah,
often?
really. Speaking of the bear up there.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. We're 7:59, a minute away from 8 o'clock. Fox News then. And then Josh Widdowson in our WCCS newsroom.